Joe and Tracy are 60 years old. They've saved $1.5 million for retirement, and they're wondering whether retirement is realistic. Is it possible? And if they retired, how much income could they have? In this video, we're gonna go through creating a retirement plan to see how realistic retirement would be if they did it right now. How much income could they have? How do we maximize that income? What's the best decision for their Social Security? How do we minimize taxes over their entire lifetime? And especially since they are younger than age 65, how are they gonna take care of health insurance? Can they have health insurance in an affordable way? So without any further ado, let's get right into this video. If you're like a lot of the people that I've talked to from across the country who are in their late 50s, early 60s, you're starting to seriously consider whether retirement is something that you could do. And you know what? The first step to figure that out is to look at all of your financial information and model it out just to see what is realistic. So we need to look at your income sources like your Social Security, look at how much you've saved for retirement in your retirement accounts and other accounts. It's a good idea to kind of have an idea of what your realistic monthly expenses are right now. Think about some things that you'd like to do in retirement so we can build that into a plan. And then, of course, as an early retiree, we always have to take into consideration health insurance. So if you're retiring before age 65, you're not going to be on Medicare yet, and you're probably used to working for an employer who kind of takes care of that. They take a little bit out of your paycheck, and then you're good to go. As an early retiree, now you need to go and figure out how to get that for yourself. And if you haven't looked at the prices for wherever you live, there's a little bit of sticker shock. Most people are surprised at just how much it costs to pay for even a high deductible health insurance plan. Luckily, there's strategies that you can use to lower your health insurance premiums. So for this case study, we're going to get into all that detail to help you figure out, give you an idea from the perspective of somebody else what retirement could look like. So Joe and Tracy, they live in Florida. They've saved $1.5 million. Now, of that $1.5 million, they have $1 million in a 401k account, $250,000 is saved in a brokerage account, and $250,000 is saved in a Roth IRA. Now, they both have Social Security benefits. Joe has been the primary breadwinner for the household, and his expected Social Security benefit at age 67, if he were to wait till his full retirement age, is $4,000 a month. Tracy has worked as well outside of the home, but she's taken some time off in her career, raising their children, and so her expected benefit is lower. It's $2,500 a month if she were to wait all the way until age 67. So the first step with building a retirement plan is we're going to map out their cash flows and see just what's realistic from an income perspective. Then we can look at how do we optimize their Social Security, and then third, we want to look at how do we optimize for taxes. Should they be considering Roth conversions? And especially in their case, how can we manage their taxes so they can have, number one, the cash flow that they want, and secondarily, have affordable health insurance. So I'm going to flip over to my planning software and let's get into these details. Okay, so here's our plan for Joe and Tracy. Like I said, we've got their financial overview as it stands today, and based on their current savings of $1.5 million, they could look at getting a realistic after tax, this is actually money in their bank account, $9,850 a month. So what does that look like though? When are they claiming Social Security? How does this even work? So let's look at the cash flow and we can kind of see that breakdown over time of where their income is actually coming from. So on the screen, we have a chart below us. Now across the bottom, this is showing 2025 all the way up until like 2061. So we're planning a long retirement. You never know how long you're going to live, but when it comes to retirement planning, assuming you're in great health or even in just good health, I mean, most people in their 60s have, their fair share of bumps and bruises and health problems. You're not 20 anymore, but let's plan on a long life expectancy. So on the screen, we have years across the bottom, and along the y-axis here on the left-hand side, we've got monthly income that we're projecting here. So this yellow color, this represents taking money out of the portfolio. Now, as we go along, you can see there's two other colors. The dark blue represents Tracy's Social Security benefit, and the light blue is Joe's Social Security benefit. So you can see that if they retire at age 60, neither one of them is going to qualify for Social Security yet. So all of their cash flow would have to come from the portfolio. Now, eventually, as we go along, you can see that here we have Tracy claiming her Social Security benefit at age 63. And maybe that sounds odd to you, and I'll get into why I'm using this particular Social Security age claiming strategy. But if she were to claim it at age 63, instead of getting her full $2,500 a month, she would just get a little over $2,000 a month for her monthly benefit. And then I have Joe claiming his benefit here at age 67, his full retirement age, and he would get about $4,500 a month. Now, when we start start of the video, I told you, hey, his benefit would be $4,000. And that's true. However, when you look at your projected Social Security benefit, it shows you what that number is today. Even if you stop working, you're going to notice if you go and log into ssa.gov and look at your Social Security benefit projection every single year, that number's going to go up slowly each year with cost of living adjustments. Social Security doesn't bake those into the projection, so you have to just go ahead and do the math to figure that out. But the software is taking that into consideration so we can see what his projected benefit would be. In his case, it's about $4,500 a month. So you can see that once they've both claimed Social Security, at that point in time, their cash flow is mostly coming from Social Security benefits. Their gross monthly income is about $11,400 a month. $4,500 of that is coming from Joe's Social Security benefit. Tracy's benefit by that point in time is about $2,190, and then they're pulling about $4,680 from the portfolio. Now, at this point, we're talking about cash flows. You may have noticed the years that I'm choosing here for their Social Security claiming strategy and wondering, okay, what is magic about that, or why would you choose those particular dates? So when it comes to Social Security, if you're not aware of this, you're probably aware of it, but you can actually claim your Social Security benefits as early as age 62. On the flip side, you can delay your benefits until age 70. If you claim your benefits anytime early before full retirement age, so anytime younger than age 67, then you're going to get a reduction in your benefit. If you delay past your full retirement age, you'll actually get an increase. It's 8% per year. And so there can be real benefits to delaying. There's obviously kind of some pros and cons to every approach. If you delay your Social Security benefit, you have higher guaranteed monthly income from the Social Security Administration. If you take it earlier, well, you're getting that money sooner. That's less money you have to pull from your portfolio, but your Social Security check is smaller. So what's the best approach? Well, thankfully, we can actually look at different claiming strategies to see if there's kind of an optimal way for this couple to claim their Social Security in order to maximize not just their Social Security benefit, but their overall monthly income in retirement. So let's take a look at that, and I'll kind of show you how I went about arriving at this particular claiming date. So on this screen, we can see what is the optimal time for them to claim their Social Security benefit based on a few variables. How long are they going to live based on their projected benefits? But this analysis right here only takes into consideration Social Security. Okay, so what the chart is essentially showing us, if we look at Tracy's age here, starting from 62 up to 70, and then Joe's age of 62 to 70, if we kind of find where these correspond, it's highlighted here that for them to get the most out of Social Security to maximize their benefit, they would both need to wait until age 70. But of course, there's some potential downsides to that. If they both wait until age 70 to claim their benefits, that's a full 10 years of retirement where 100% of their income is just coming from taking money out of the portfolio. Now, that's not necessarily the wrong approach here, but it has some trade-offs. It means they're going to spend down their portfolio significantly, and that may not actually be the way to maximize their overall retirement income. Although, based on these assumptions, it happens to be the way for them to get the most out of Social Security. So let's look at another piece of analysis to incorporate their portfolio and see what might be the best claiming age, to maximize overall monthly income. So here on this screen, along the left-hand side, again, we have Tracy's age from age 62 to age 70, and along the bottom, we have Joe's age from 62 to age 70. And we can find here correspondingly which one of the squares on this grid represents the maximum monthly income, as far as a claiming strategy. So it's highlighted right here already for us that according to all of the assumptions, their life expectancy, assuming their investments are in a diversified portfolio, getting average rates of return over time, then probably the most optimal age for them to claim Social Security is going to actually be for both of them to claim at age 69, kind of interestingly enough. If we look at comparing it to both of them at age 70, like the previous analysis showed us, you can see that their expected monthly income is slightly lower, about $80 a month lower than if they were to both claim a year earlier. Now, this analysis is it's heavily driven by the assumptions. So if we assume that maybe they earn a slightly higher rate of return than average, then it'll probably make sense for them to claim a little bit sooner because more of their money can remain invested and grow over time. If their rates of return are lower, it might actually make sense for them to delay Social Security. There's also other considerations beyond just, the financial considerations. Sometimes people prefer to just get their benefit as early as possible, or perhaps have fears about the solvency of the Social Security system, and for that reason, they like to claim their benefits sooner rather than later. Taking all of this into consideration for Joe and Tracy, we can try and find maybe what makes sense, what's maybe the best decision for them to claim. What's interesting here on this screen, you'll notice this green outline. What this represents is that any of the claiming ages within this green bracket represent a claiming strategy that's within about 1.5% of the optimized plans. You can say that maybe this is mathematically the very best, but everything within the green is also an excellent plan. And then, like I just said, if we just tweak the assumptions, one of these other ages might actually be more ideal. So based off of this, for their preference to get benefits sooner rather than later, we ended up going with this strategy here of Joe claiming at his full retirement age 67, and Tracy claiming at age 63, which leaves him with, you can see an expected monthly income of $98.50 as opposed to the optimal $99.80, difference of about $130 a month, but they're pretty optimistic about investing in the market, and so they prefer to claim just a little bit earlier than the software is kind of optimally recommending. So that's what we have built into the plan. It's important that before you make a decision for Social Security, you make the decision based on some facts. You need to run the numbers and see what makes the most sense for your situation. And even if you choose a strategy that's maybe not like perfectly optimal, it's about understanding the pros and cons, and maybe what you're giving up and what are some of the potential benefits or potential downsides. So there's not a perfect or golden rule right answer. It's about finding the right answer for your situation. These are some of the things to consider. It's what they went with. So with this in mind, let's go back to the plan and let's look at taxes. So when it comes to taxes and retirement, what we need to look at is there a way that we can reduce taxes over the life of the plan? So when we look at a retirement plan, we've looked at how to maximize income. We want to get that highest number possible. The second thing to look at is how do we keep as much of that income as possible? And that's where taxes come in. So when it comes to tax planning, it's not about, you don't, get a gold star for just paying the lowest amount of taxes, but kind of finding the right approach. Just like with Social Security, there's pros and cons, there's drawbacks, and you always have to factor in the assumptions. That's kind of the annoying thing in the background with all of this stuff, is that it's all very heavily driven by the assumptions you use. So with $98.50 per month net of income, first thing that I want to talk about is health insurance. So for health insurance, if you retire before age 65, then your options for health insurance are basically one of 3 different types of health insurance you can look at. I suppose there's actually 4 options. The first option is if you're working for an employer, you have the option to get COBRA coverage. And COBRA coverage will extend. It basically means that you can purchase your employer's health insurance plan after you retire, and you can keep that in place for up to 18 months. So usually it's not a great option for retirees because you have to pay the full price of that health insurance in most cases, and so it ends up being very expensive. Now, that may not be the case with your employer. I've actually personally seen people who, when they retire, their company will continue to cover or subsidize the health insurance, so it could be affordable. So really, to figure if that works in your case, you need to talk with your HR department and see what your company's benefits are. Second option is you might have a retirement health insurance plan. It's not very common, but if you have a background, working in government, either federal at the state level, and even some companies, if you've been with a company for a really long time, it's possible that you're grandfathered into a plan where, along with some type of retirement pension benefit, you also have some type of health insurance benefit in retirement. Not very common, but again, it's something to look at and see if that's applicable in your situation. The third option is to purchase a plan through the healthcare exchange. So through the Affordable Care Act, you either go to the federal website, healthcare.gov, or your own state website. So these guys live in Florida near Orlando, and the state of Florida uses the federal website. Other states have their own website. But whether you have a state-run plan or it's through just the federal system, it all works the same. And essentially, the way that it works is if your income is below a certain level, and I should say specifically, if your modified adjusted gross income is below a certain level, then you'll qualify for health insurance subsidies. You'll get a discount. Literally, the federal government will pay part of your monthly premium. Now, if your income is over that limit, then you don't get any subsidy. So for a household of 2, husband and wife, that income threshold for them is just over $80,000 for the year. So if their modified adjusted gross income is lower than $80,000, then they'll qualify for significant subsidies. So I went ahead and ran some quotes for a 60-year-old couple in Orange County, Florida, to give you an idea of what actual health insurance plans look like for somebody who has $80,000 of modified adjusted gross income. So on this tab, I've already run those quotes. Yep, I still do want to be logged in. So we have a couple, husband and wife, age 60. You can't see it here, but I put into their information that their annual income is $80,000. And based off of that, they would qualify for a monthly premium tax credit, basically money towards their health insurance, of $1,671 a month. So pretty significant savings that you are eligible for if you meet the income thresholds. So in their case, for this high deductible plan, you can see that this plan used to be $1,706 a month. So probably a little bit of sticker shock there if you're used to getting health insurance through an employer, looking at that and thinking, my goodness, how is retirement possible having to pay $1,700 a month for a high deductible health insurance plan? Well, with the premium tax credit, this plan is now only $35 a month. Okay, that's probably looking a little more affordable. So we can scroll through here, $52 a month, $84 a month, $87 a month. So all of a sudden, if we can meet those income thresholds and qualify for premium tax credits, insurance goes from being something that maybe makes retirement not even possible until you're age 65, and now all of a sudden it makes it a real possibility. Okay, if I'm paying $100 or less a month for the household for health insurance, then this actually might work out pretty well. I'll add a little caveat here. I wasn't planning on talking about it, but often with early retirees, I'll see that sometimes they still have adult children that are on their health insurance plan. Maybe you have kids in college, they're under 26, and they're on your company health insurance plan with you, and you're thinking, well, my goodness, I need to have health insurance for my son or daughter or whatever. Well, actually, you can have them on an ACA plan like this. They're added to your household, and actually, it's a little bit of a cheat code. It can be more affordable for health insurance if you include a couple of adult children, obviously as long as they're under the age limit where they still qualify to be on your plan up to age 26. And the reason for that is that it increases the number of people for your household and allows you to have a higher amount of income and still qualify for a health insurance plan. So for example, for a household of 4, instead of having the max income be $80,000 for the year, you could have a max income up to maybe $120,000 for the year and still qualify for significant health insurance subsidies. So something that if it's applicable to you, it's very important, and it could be it could actually really help. So if we go back to their plan, you're probably doing the math in your head and thinking, okay, $98.50 a month, well, that's more than $80,000 a year, so how is it that we're going to qualify for this? This is where the tax planning comes in. We know that there's a real opportunity here to reduce their monthly health insurance costs. So what do we do to have both, maximize our monthly cash flow and income and still qualify for those health insurance subsidies? Well, the good news is that for this couple, they have pre-tax money, money in a 401k, they have money in a brokerage account, and they have money in a Roth IRA. Each one of these buckets of retirement savings is treated differently from a tax perspective when you pull that money out of your account. So for example, if we pull the full $98.50 from their 401k account, then what would happen is they would report about $118,000 for the year of income when they file their taxes. Obviously, they would not qualify for a health insurance subsidy in that case. On the other hand, if we pulled money out of their Roth IRA, even if they pulled out all of the money for the year, all of their monthly income, $118,000 from their Roth IRA, their income for the year would be zero. Okay, so that's pretty great. They would definitely qualify for subsidies. And as well, from their brokerage account, if they pull money out of there, it's going to be mostly tax-free. The reason I say mostly is because if you have money invested in a brokerage account, it's probably earning some interest income, or maybe if the money is invested, as you're selling investments and spending the money, you have to recognize some capital gain. So that's going to be unique for everybody's situation. But if you compare it with taking money out of the 401k, it's definitely going to be more tax efficient. And in this case, it's going to allow this couple to get both the cash flow they want and qualify for the health insurance subsidies. So looking at this, they have $1 million in their 401k account and only $250,000 in their brokerage account and $250,000 in their Roth. So we can't just have all of their monthly income coming from the brokerage account and the Roth IRA. They're going to run out of money in those tax advantage accounts before they get to age 65. So really what we kind of have to do is take, proportionally, they can pull some of the money from the 401k, but then supplement some of that monthly income from their brokerage account and some of the money from the Roth. So just kind of a simple example is, if we know they have an income limit of $80,000, they could pull $80,000 from the 401k, and then the remaining income that they want for the year, about an extra $40,000. Part of that could come from the brokerage, part of it could come from the Roth, and that way they could have the cash flow they want while also qualifying for the health insurance subsidies. Man, I think I've said that. I've repeated myself like 5 times. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. So now with tax planning, now that we've kind of solved or figured out how we can help them qualify for affordable health insurance for the first 5 years of retirement, let's look at it. Are there ways to maximize their tax savings over the entire life of their retirement plan? So now that we've figured out health insurance for this couple, let's look at ways that we can maximize their tax savings for the rest of their retirement. Are there, should we be looking at things like Roth conversions to minimize required minimum distributions later on in retirement? Let's take a look there and see if there's some savings opportunities for this couple as well. So on the screen, what we're looking at here is what are different ways that we can distribute money from their accounts in order to qualify for affordable health insurance. And you can see this summary right right here in the middle of the screen. What this is saying is what's a summary of the tax savings if we do some Roth conversions up to a certain threshold compared with just pulling money out of the accounts and not considering anything for Roth conversions. And I won't go into the detail. What this is basically saying, the first IRMA bracket, and I haven't gone into talk about Medicare very briefly. Your Medicare will actually be more expensive in retirement if you have higher income. And so there's actually separate income brackets for Medicare. So what this is saying is, what if we do Roth conversions up to that first Medicare bracket so you don't have to pay extra for Medicare? And we use that as kind of the line to determine how much income to have. So if they were to do Roth conversions up to that point, how much could they save over the life of their retirement? Well, on average, they would save about 3.5% per year, going from about a 8% effective or average tax rate over retirement down to 4.8% average tax rate, which would save them about $345,000 of total taxes. Their net income would go up by about $345,000, and they'd be able to leave an additional net legacy, after-tax legacy, to their children or to whomever they decide of about $200,000. So you can see that with a simple Roth conversion approach, this is a way for them to really maximize how much of their money that they've saved, actually how much do they get to keep and get to spend over their lifetime. So with the Roth conversions here for this case study, we can't start those Roth conversions right away early in retirement in this situation because of health insurance. So actually what will happen is for the first 5 years, we're going to refrain from doing any Roth conversions so that they can qualify for that $1,600 a month health insurance tax benefit. And then after they get to age 65, now we can look at doing Roth conversions up to this threshold in order to get this additional significant savings of over $300,000 a year. Now, again, this is based off of current tax codes projected in the future, but there's some other things to consider here. What if one of them, Joe or Tracy, passed away early and left their spouse living a long time? In that case, they would go from a married filing jointly status down to a single filer status, which would mean more of their Social Security would be taxable. They would have higher tax brackets, and they'd be subject to potentially higher costs for their Medicare. So if you take that into consideration, it often makes a lot of sense for somebody to do Roth conversions proactively so that they can avoid that widow or widower tax bomb that can come. So you can see for Joe and Tracy, retiring at age 60 is actually looking very realistic, assuming that they would be comfortable living on $98.50 per month. And in their case, that meets their living expenses and what they would hope to have for travel and other fun things in retirement. So when it comes to retirement planning, you need to look at your numbers, figure out how to maximize Social Security. How do you maximize income? We need to solve the puzzle for health insurance. Is there ways to get affordable health insurance? Because frankly, let's face it, if you had to pay, $1,700 or $2,000 a month for health insurance, retirement may not be possible. But with subsidies, with qualifying for that, it may very well be totally possible for your situation. And next, we need to look at how do they keep as much of that income and send less of it to the government for taxes. With all of these things into consideration, you might find for your situation, like Joe and Tracy, that retirement is very, very possible. So if you'd like some help looking through your scenario, figuring out what might be the best course of action for you to pursue, click the link in the description. I'd be happy to meet with you one-on-one and help you figure out what might make the most sense. So until next time, I really hope you have a great week. I'm glad you listened to the video, and I'll see you next week.